All right, folks, NASCAR is back today, and we're back with another predictions video on the channel. It's been a long time coming. It's been a little over 2 months since the last NASCAR race in the Cup Series, and I'm going to take you through a bunch of predictions that I think are going to happen for today's race. All right, so first off, let's get the elephant out of the room. Turn 1, lap 1 could be crazy, but I don't think it's going to be. Drivers, they've been driving these cars for a long time. I know rookies like Christopher Bell, Cole Custer, they haven't necessarily been in the Cup Series a long time, but I just don't see I don't see the hype around Turn 1, lap 1. They're going to get a big pile up because it's a green racetrack and they have not been in the cars for 2 months. I wouldn't say that. These guys are professional stock car drivers for a reason at the top level. So I don't think that that's going to happen. Now, can there be an accident before we get to the first competition yellow? Very, very likely. I think a lot of it would probably have to do with like maybe a tire blowout, and that tire blowout could come out from obviously somebody getting into the wall and having some sort of a tire rub, because I don't think you're allowed to pit before the competition caution for tires at least. So that could be a good possibility for that happening. I'm going to take you through the drivers now that I think will be best fit, because obviously most of this has to do with betting / fantasy lineup odds, mostly fantasy lineup odds. So I went into Racing Reference, obviously, because this is going to be the best interpretation of what I have statistically, first off. And then second off, that's all we have to go off is past history at the racetrack. So drivers I would stay away from today are going to be these few drivers. Obviously, you want to stay away from the rookies, in my opinion, here. They have not ridden in a Cup Series car at this racetrack. And with it being a green racetrack, there's no way I think that you could put these guys on your fantasy team. It's just too much of a risk, despite the fact that some of them had a heck of a start to the season, like Tyler Reddick and even Cole Custer at times. I think Custer had a top 10 or 2 in the first 4 races of the season. But Custer, Reddick, John Hunter Nemechek, Bell, it's just too risky. Although Christopher Bell, you would think might be the best fit because he is probably the best wheelman, and that is the kind of driver you would want for Darlington. It's just too risky. Another driver I would stay away from that actually has experience at the racetrack is Clint Bowyer. Bowyer in the last 4 races has gotten in 2 accidents and only has 1 top 10 at this racetrack. So I would stay away from Clint Bowyer as well in your fantasy lineup today, strictly based off of those stats. Obviously, 2019 last season is going to be the most it's going to be the best history you could have at this racetrack when looking back at past Southern 500s, because 2019 is the same rules package that they're going to be running for this race today. So I don't think you can't go too far back into history, although it does help. I only went back as far as 5 or 6 years at the most, and even then, I mean, there's just so many different drivers now versus what there was then at the top level. So between that and, yeah, again, same rules package as last year. Before that, it was a 750 horsepower rules package. So now here is some dark horses that I think can contend for today. Maybe not necessarily for the win, but drivers that I think are going to have a great shot at getting in the top 10 today. We'll start off first, Matt DiBenedetto. DiBenedetto is starting in 3rd place today in the 21 car. He's arguably, and maybe not even arguably, but in the best car team-wise in Wood Brothers Racing than any other season that he has been in the Cup Series, whether it was BK Racing or Go Fast Racing, for Bob Levine Family Racing. And he has performed decent in the lower tier cars. He's finishing in the 20s, but last season, again, going back to 2019, 550 horsepower rules package with Levine Family Racing, he finished in the top 10. You got can't remember off the top of my head. It was a 7th or 8th place finish, but he did finish in the top 10 with a lower funded team. And not only it's a lower funded team, they were affiliated with Joe Gibbs Racing. They still are, but that defeats the purpose. Again, it goes back to this is a wheelman driver mentality kind of race. And when you have no practice time to go off of and nothing but recent history and the driver in the seat of the car, especially for the very beginning of this race, you're going to want that driver, and it helps that he's starting in third place because of the pill draw. He had a really good pill draw. So Matt DiBenedetto could be a dark horse in today's race. Another one that you might not think of, though, off the top of your head, Austin Dillon, I think, is going to have a very great day. I think he's a great fit for your fantasy team. And the reason being is Austin Dillon has finished in the top 12 in each of the last 5 races at Darlington. Did anybody realize that? Because I didn't know that until I looked on Racing Reference. 3 of those races, he finished in the top 10, and then he had an 11th and 12th place finish. Last season, he finished in the top 10. He finished 10th. So I think he's a driver, again, that isn't going to compete for the win, but he is a very, very good candidate to finish in the top 10. He knows how to survive 500-mile races here. This is a lot shorter than 500 miles, so that'll help him out even more. He is starting a little bit further back, but he's not too terribly back. He's I can't remember exactly where he started. We'll see here in a little bit when I show you guys who's going to be in my fantasy lineup, but I think he's starting just outside the top 10. But even if he finishes like 12th, that's a good 5th driver to have in your lineup. I think Austin Dillon's another great dark horse you could have for today's race. Now, drivers who can have a chance to win today's race, I think you're going to have a lot of usual suspects, usual favorites at most racetracks, especially intermediate tracks like Darlington's considered. It drives like a short track, but it's got the length of an intermediate track, which makes it very unique. Obviously, it's an egg-shaped racetrack, very tight turns 3. It's tight all the way around, but turns 3 and 4 are even tighter, and then a little wider in 1 or 2 as far as the angling of the corner. But anyway, I think it's going to be these drivers who you can depend on your fantasy team no matter what. We might not take them because, again, you can only use a certain that same driver 10 times over the course of the season. There are some guys we have used twice in the first 4 races already, so we might stay away from some of these guys. But Brad Keselowski, obviously, he won here 2 years ago, 2018. He has finished inside the top 10 in 4 of the last 5 races. The only race he didn't, he finished 15th. So Brad Keselowski, definitely a good candidate. 3 of those races were top 5 finishes, by the way. Another good candidate, Kurt Busch. He's led a lot of laps here, and Kurt Busch also has the history. Again, in the last 5 races, he is one of only 2 drivers to finish inside the top 10 in each of those 5 races. The other driver is Kevin Harvick in the 4 car. Harvick, last 5 races, he has finished in the top 10 at Darlington in each of those Southern 500s. The difference between Harvick and Kurt Busch is Harvick has won 1 of those races. Kurt Busch did not get a win, but Kurt Busch did have 2 top 3s in there as well. So I think both of those guys are strong candidates. Kyle Busch is another strong candidate. Obviously, it's Kyle Busch, but again, going off of past history of the racetrack within the last 4 or 5 years, he has gotten a win, and he has finished in the top 10 all but once. The one time he did not finish in the top 10, he finished 11th in 2017. So again, it's a very, very good idea to take any of those 4 drivers, if not all of them. Another driver hasn't raced here a lot. He's a younger driver, and I said you might want to stay away from younger drivers, but I think this guy is a lock on my fantasy team, especially because I haven't used him a lot, and I don't know how many times I'm going to use him in the future unless he gets hot this season. But that driver's Eric Jones. Eric Jones has started 3 Southern 500s, so 3 races at Darlington he has started. He has finished top 5 in each of those, and that includes a win last season with the 550 horsepower rules package. The other finishes a 3rd and a 5th. And the 5th place finish was in the 77 car. Excuse me. the 77 car for, who did he race there? Oh, yeah, Furniture Row. Yeah, Furniture Row Racing. So, and that was not the same car that Truex had. By no means was that the same car. It was the same team, but there was no way that was the same car that Truex would have had for Furniture Row Racing. So that has to be a lock on your fantasy team is Eric Jones. So I'm trying to think if I'm missing. Oh, no, I don't think I'm missing anybody. There is one driver, though, that I would probably predict for the win today, but he is not in the field, and that's Kyle Larson. And that's only because, again, I was looking on Racing Reference, and he has led a lot of laps here over the last 3 seasons alone. He's led the most laps within the last 3 races at this racetrack. He just didn't have the finishes in 2 of them. He finished top 10. I think he finished like 7th in 1 of them. And then he finished 19th last year. So he had a rough finish despite leading the most laps. And then 2 years ago. 2017, he also led the most laps, but he ended up finishing in 13th. So, yeah, not the finishes. But again, he's not in the field today. So, I just felt like putting that out just because I saw that in Racing Reference. But that's the only reason why I even said anything. Now, let's take a look at who I think I'm going to put in my starting lineup. All right, so these are the drivers that I'm going to have in my lineup. Obviously, again, this is what I ended up having at the end of the Phoenix race. It's been a while since I've looked back at this. Let's see how I actually did for Phoenix, because I don't think you guys actually saw that. We'll just take a quick look here. Again, I had Harvick on my team. Kyle Busch scored good. Chase Elliott scored good. And Keselowski scored good. Blaney and Hamlin got in that accident early in the race, so I had to put Blaney in my garage and put Denny Hamlin in the lineup, and he couldn't really make up all the points, but he did make up a little bit. And then also, I predicted Chase Elliott to qualify in the pole. He did. I predicted Harvick to win stage 1. He did. I had Harvick just to put him in for each of the stages and win the race. He finished second and second, so I didn't get points for that, but I also got points for Ford winning because Joey Logano did get the win that day. So I know what I'm talking about. If you're new to the channel, I watch a lot of NASCAR. Like I've said on previous live streams, it's been a long time since I've missed a race. So this is what we're looking at here. We got just log right into there. All right, so drivers we're going to keep in the lineup today. What I'm going to do, because you have 6 drivers, and obviously one of them is going to be a dark horse pick. We might even have 2 dark horse picks just because we want to save some of those usages. Kevin Harvick, we've already used 3 times this year, and how badly I want to use him again just because of his track history here. We'll hold off on him for now. We're definitely going to take Brad Keselowski. We already have him in our lineup back there. We've only used him once, and like I said, he's got good track history. So for Kevin Harvick, for right now, we're going to put Eric Jones in the starting lineup. Jones is starting a little further back. He's starting in 20th, but again, top 5 in each of the last 3 races. His only 3 career races here. He knows how to get around this place. I think he might have won an Xfinity race as well, by the way. Kyle Busch, we're going to keep him in the lineup. He's starting up towards the front of the field. He's starting 4th. We've only used him once, and it's a good idea, guys. Trust me, it's a good idea. So for our 3rd driver in the lineup, we're going to scroll through here, see who we have used, who we haven't used. Denny Hamlin, he's starting top 10. And he has good history at the racetrack. And I know what you're saying, too. Joe Gibbs Racing hasn't had the strongest start to the season through the first 4 races, but I think these next 4 races, you can almost just throw out the history. I know Blaney's led a lot of laps too, but Blaney just doesn't have the track history here at Darlington that I would like on my fantasy team, despite the fact he's my favorite driver. Matt Kenseth's had good history here too, but it's been a long time since he's been in the car, so that's a risky pick. And Newman's got good track history too, but he's just coming off of an injury. We don't know how he's going to race because it's been since Daytona, and that by most people is considered not a real racetrack. So not a driver's ability racetrack, I should say. So again, we're going to stay away from Boyer. Yeah, we're going to keep Denny Hamlin in the lineup. So again, we got Hamlin, we got Keselowski. So we need to replace Chase Elliott. I think this is going to be the opportunity we're going to have to pull with one of the dark horse picks. So you look at DiBenedetto and Austin Dillon. DiBenedetto is probably the safer pick, but again, Austin Dillon, he has had top 12s in each of the last 5 races here at Darlington. So he might not get the stage points, but he's going to get the finishing points. I think Austin Dillon's going to actually be a good driver for your garage today. He is starting a little deeper in the field, 16th, but that's okay. And again, if they get in an accident, then so be it. Again, we're going to replace Chase Elliott. So we're debating on 2 drivers. We're debating on Kevin Harvick. We're debating on Matt DiBenedetto. Now, Kevin Harvick, in that 4 car, we have already used 3 times this year. So if we use him again, that's going to be tough. He's guaranteed to get a lot of stage points, a lot of points today. Well, we've used him way too much already in the season. We don't want to use him for the first 5 races. And again, there was the one mistake I made last season was that I didn't start guys enough because I was worried I was starting them too much at the beginning of the year, so I held off on them. And then come the end of the regular season, because this only runs through the regular season before a different playoff. fantasy system. But this contest only runs through the regular season, and there was guys I still had, like Kyle Busch. I still had 3 uses for. Like I ended up like saving them too much. Like I could have used them more. I think there was only 2 drivers I actually ran out, and it was within the last couple weeks anyway. I think we'll go with Matt DiBenedetto for now. But again, Harvick has to be a lock on most of your guys' lineup. It looks like he is the most used of anybody. So, yeah, Harvick would be a lock on my lineup. The only reason we don't have him is just because of the usages. So now, let's go on to who I think can win the race. In the first stage, again, this race is a lot shorter, just over 300 miles in length. So it's not a long race at all. Actually, I think it's about a 400, whatever the length is. I know it's just over 300 laps. So this is what we're going to look at. Stage 1 winner. I think it's going to be a driver that's going to start towards the front. And I think just the safest pick to go with there is going to be Kyle Busch because he's starting in 4th. He's got a faster pit crew. We'll just go with Kyle Busch winning stage 1 just for the heck of it. Stage 2. Again, I think you got to take a driver that's starting near the front. Now, a guy that we don't necessarily have on our fantasy team, we'll take Kevin Harvick just because he's that strong here. Race winner. This is going to be tough because, again, you're basically going off of history and a driver's ability and just being at the track, having more track time than a lot of the younger drivers. DiBenedetto is considered a younger driver, but he has had laps here at this racetrack. I don't want to go with him to win the first race coming back, though. But, again, they race here at Darlington Wednesday night. We're going to use a lot of these same statistics also based on how this race goes because it'll be a similar length. But, man, this is a tough choice. Again, we got a lot of guys we can pick from here. I don't want to stick with Keselowski because although he has had good history here, that's good enough history for my fantasy team, but I don't think it's good enough history for the win. He did win 2 years ago, and he did also have a runner-up finish, but outside of those 2, he's in the back half of the top 10. The other 2 times he did finish in the top 10 the last 4 years. Not going to consider Bowman again. I don't think DiBenedetto can win. I'm pulling more towards Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick, to be completely honest. Hamlin back there in 10th as well. I think he can contend for the win. He's starting a little bit deeper in the field than what I would like at Darlington. I don't think he's going to get as many stage points as, say, Harvick and Kyle Busch. So that's why I would go with one of these 2. So you know what? Today, I think we're just going to play it safe. And I think we're going to go with Kyle Busch. We're going to go with Toyota getting the first win of the season. Wrong button. There we go. Okay. So that is my fantasy picks for today. A little bit of a longer video, but it's the first race back. We had a lot of information to go off of. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys take my advice. I'm not saying put the exact starting lineup in, but we did name some guys that we don't have in our lineup, of course, that you can put in your lineup for today's race. Hopefully you guys enjoy. It's going to be a fun one. NASCAR's back. Also, we're going to have a live stream at Talladega at some point in time. Noon Eastern Standard Time today. That's our next Cup Series live stream on NASCAR Heat 4. That'll lead you up to the start time, or at least close to the start time of that Darlington Cup race later today. So hopefully you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button for more daily NASCAR content, such as videos like this and full race NASCAR Heat 4 live streams of the live realistic broadcast. We'll be back for the post-race analysis video later today after the race, and we'll review how the fantasy lineup went.